Let's go. Let's go. Come on, let's
We're
go.
going
Let's
already.
go. Let's go.
Welcome back to Hoops HD, everyone other than David. Welcome back to Hoops HD. I'm
Well,
your
why
host, Chad
why am I
Sherwood.
not welcome back?
You're never welcome anywhere, David.
Well, but aside from that, yeah.
Um, this is our first of regular season Hoops HD report. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood, joined by the annoying little puppet down there, David Griggs, as well as up top here with me, we got John Titel and John Stalika. Right below me, Joby Fortson, and on the other side, on the bottom row, Matt Zakowski. We've got a lot to get through tonight. We are going to be talking about the games that happened over the past few days here, from Friday all the way through the early games this evening here. We're going to be taking a preview of some of the upcoming games this week outside of the tournaments that are beginning. And then we're going to go through all of the in-season tournaments from the Puerto Rico tip-off all the way down out to the Diamond Head coming up in December. Give you a little preview of them, our thoughts on who's going to win each of them. And I don't know what else we'll do, but I'm sure we'll get to more stuff from that even. But let's kind of start with opening day. And Titel, the game of the day on opening day, at least in my opinion, was the Texas A&M West Virginia game. And it was kind of a blowout, wasn't it?
There's no kind of about it. 88-65 from Ramstein Air Force Base. What's amazing is that the Aggies were down early a lot, and they didn't have the big man Robert Williams. But thanks to Admon Gilder and DJ Hogg off the bench, 42 points, 8 of 11 threes, 16 boards, 13 assists, amazing bench output. They were able to take care of business. Mountaineers, you'd think with that press Virginia and up and down pace, they would get to the line. They made 5 of 9 free throws. They're not beating anybody if they can't get to the line.
Yeah, and in fact, it was a pretty impressive opening weekend all across the board for the SEC. Joby, we saw Missouri beat Iowa State by 15 points, and Iowa State team that I guess we thought would be a little bit good. Maybe they're not, but
and I would say it'd have to be the case. Just Porter didn't even play for the most part. He was hobbled during that game, and so. Yeah, and that could be a bad sign for Missouri, or maybe not. Who knows? But it shows they have pieces beyond him, and so that really is a big indicator that maybe Missouri, all of us except for Rocco, were pretty much down on them. Maybe they're better than we thought.
Yeah, I'll admit when they got to win a few more games for me to be on the bandwagon, but they really did impress me. And I guess the other story out of the SEC, though, Matt, was Kentucky, that team that we thought would struggle early in the season, how young they are, and they did against both Utah Valley and Vermont, although they did go 2-0.
Yeah, the Utah Valley surprised me a little bit. Vermont, not at all. Vermont's a really good team.
Vermont is good.
Yeah, they might be in the conversation for that large if they need one. They really should have out of that league, but they're really good. They're a top 50, top 60 type team. That a young Kentucky team that's nowhere near complete, that's surprised if that was a game. If anything, I'm almost a little surprised they won it.
I am too. I know we're going to touch on that later in the week, but this really is a good Vermont team. Certainly not the best team Kentucky will play, not even close, but a lot better than what a lot of people realize. And I think Kentucky deserves more credit for winning it than they do criticism for it being as close as it was. I was expecting that Vermont would play well and maybe even win. You had them on your 10 line, and wasn't that partly because you thought they could win that game?
It was I didn't expect them to win this game, but I thought there was a chance that they could be competitive in this game, absolutely, and they were. I kind of thought the upset was possible. That I wasn't assuming a win there by any means, though.
Oh yeah, if I had to pick one of the two, I would have picked Vermont, even though it was at Kentucky, and they just and they had that one spell right before halftime where they just went kind of cold, and other than that, they were right in there for the whole game.
Right. Stalika, the other notable game involving two power conference schools, at least. Well, there's a couple of them, but the other one on opening day was UCLA Georgia Tech out in China. And putting aside the whole issue of the UCLA kids who have been arrested on the court, UCLA did get the win over Georgia Tech by 3 points.
Yeah, that's going to be a shorthanded UCLA team, and Georgia Tech, we thought we might have a bit of an advantage with a little more of a fuller roster, but they were unable to come away with what's going to turn out to be a neutral court loss.
Well, Taitel, when these kids get back from their house arrest in China, and I think it's just a matter of time here. I don't think that they're actually going to end up in there 3 to 10 years of prison, which is the penalty for shoplifting in China. But when they do return, are we looking at this affecting UCLA on the court if these kids can't play? Because I have a feeling that they're going to have a very lengthy suspension after this. But you are talking some freshmen here is what you're talking.
Correct. Keep in mind, a year ago, had you told me that the most controversial person in the Ball family would be the shoplifter and that the person to come to his rescue would be Donald Trump, potentially, like, what are we living in here? Answer your question. UCLA has a couple of cupcakes next, Central Arkansas Wednesday, South Carolina State Friday. As for Monday, the 20th, they go to play Creighton at a neutral site, the Sprint Center in Kansas City. That will be a true test. I think the team has enough talent, despite the fact that they only put up 63 against Georgia Tech and almost lost the game. I think they'll be okay without these three guys. If they were missing one of the All-Americans like Wilkes or Hands, they'd be in a lot of trouble because those guys seem to be coming in and contributing immediately. But, yeah, you want to get all the off-court stuff off the court and focus on the task at hand.
In the meantime, they've already announced that Cal and Yale is going to be in the China for next year. So hopefully we won't have to worry about off-court shenanigans from those two teams. But on a related note, on the court, it's going to be a much better opener next year for Cal compared to what happened this year.
Yeah, I was going to get right there, and let's hit that Stalika. Cal loses at home to UC Riverside to open the season. And we thought the bottom of the Pac-12 could be bad this year. Washington struggled. He barely beat Belmont in a game that they probably should have lost. Washington State not looking that great either. We got a bad bottom of the Pac-12 this season.
Yeah, Washington State probably should have lost to Texas Southern at home, but miraculously came back to win that one. But as we just pointed out, Cal was losing to the other team in Riverside, not the team of the people, but the original UC Riverside.
Lance up! Lance up!
Matt, let's turn to a little Big East action here. Where let's start with over the weekend when we saw Seton Hall and Butler both struggle. Seton Hall struggled to get by Monmouth. Butler got all their hands full from Princeton also.
Yeah, I think Princeton's a pretty good team. I'm not super high on Butler, so that you told me Butler wins by 10 out of 7. That's about what I'd have picked, if not maybe even by 6 or 7. So that seeing how Monmouth surprised me a little bit more, but I think it's going to take a little time for all. Even though they're a veteran team, they're adjusting to Carrington playing the point, or I could see sometime down the road Jordan Walker coming into the starting lineup maybe for Miles Powell and shifting Carrington to the 2. So it might take a little time for the Hall. I think come March they're going to be real dangerous, but they're not quite a finished product yet, even though they're a veteran team.
Well, Joby, speaking about Big East, we just saw this evening before we started recording. We're recording this around 9:30 Eastern. The first game of the Gavitt series, Providence at home losing to Minnesota. Well, it was a close game for the Wild, but Minnesota put it away at the end.
Yeah, no, Minnesota, is better than we thought. I think Providence is still a tournament level team.
Oh,
I mean, these are two. I think this is in that underrated group of games. I think the pairing of these two might be better than the UCLA Georgia Tech pairing. At least as of right now with Okogie out and the what do you want to call them, the Shanghai 3? I mean, whatever we want to call these guys. So this is a very good test for both teams. This spells well for Minnesota. Minnesota might make a lot of noise going forward, and like we've said before, there might be a Patino still in the tournament at the end of the year.
Yeah, well,
I think this is just to build on it, I think this is a tremendous win for Minnie. I agree that Providence is a tournament caliber team. I think that they're a team that's going to beat a lot of high-level teams at home in the Big East play. I could see them having a really solid home record. This was just a great win for Minnesota. Even here it is day 4 of the season. That could end up being one of their more impressive wins. To go on in there and beat them at Providence was great.
Matt,
you had a question, Chet.
No, Matt had a comment
I
on
was going to make a quick point. I think Providence, they missed Emmett Holt in this game because he's about the same size, athletic, to guard Jordan Murphy. They had no answer because he was too quick for their big guys and too powerful for Bullock, who's a little more of a wiry type frame. So Jordan Murphy just took over that game. And I think if Providence had Holt, it might have been a different story, but they're going to need him to raise my expectations for Providence coming into the year, which was to be borderline protected seed.
Well, yeah, David, the question I was going to ask you also was on the Big Ten note here with Minnesota. We just saw Michigan kind of struggle but get by Central Michigan tonight.
Yes.
But the big upset over the weekend, Indiana losing at home badly to Indiana State.
Well, you had picked them to finish 13th, and whenever you're picked to finish below the number that your conference is named after, it's not a good sign. I think you were – and there's really nothing all that spectacular about the trees. I mean, we like them a little bit in the Missouri Valley. We don't really think that they're a front runner. I know they looked good the other night, but this was just – I think – not to take away from Indiana State. I mean, it was a great showing, but this is just a sign, I think, that there are major, major problems in Indiana right now.
So David, you really like Chad's Big Ten rankings then?
No. I mean, we do have Tim Miles, and again, 2-0 tonight, undefeated in a power conference. I mean, that is simply hands down a Final Four pace that Tim Miles and the basketball are on right now. And like, I've been tweeting with Tim Miles. I have been.
You've been tweeting with Tim Miles.
I've been tweeting with Tim Miles. He kicked you out. Would you like to? What the hell? What the hell is that?
Salika, you had a comment.
A few numbers of futility as it relates to Indiana. This is the first time they lost a season opener since the 1984-85 season when they lost to Mother Miami, a team that at the time featured Ron Harper and another one of our favorites in Ron Hunter. But you have to go back almost a century the last time an Indiana coach lost his debut, which also happened to be against Indiana State.
See, there it is. Me and Tim Miles tweeting right there.
That is Timmy Miles. That is not the real Tim.
Yes, it is. That is the real Tim Miles. That's me and him tweeting. And he said that truer word. He complimented me. He's destroying the non-believers. That's what it's happening. They're on a Final Four pace, and they will destroy the non-believers, Jed.
You've been buzzed again, apparently, David. Titel, let's go over to the ACC, where Louisville struggled with George Mason at home. Did pick up the win eventually, but it was not by any means a looking like a top 20 team.
Yeah, but after all their chaos of the offseason on and off the court, like I didn't expect them to go out and beat Mason by 30 or anything. After the first 10 minutes, they were down 14-8, but they bounced back nicely to win by double digits. Bang Adele looked great. Quentin Snyder, solid. Darius Perry, some freshman who I'd never heard of, with 17 off the bench, including 8 of 8 from the line. I would not push the panic button on the season just yet. I'm still not booking them for the tournament. Because I want to see how they do against a team that's better than Mason, frankly. But I was impressed with their effort.
Well, I guess, Joe, before I talk about teams who've given unimpressive efforts, how about those Pitt Panthers?
Oh boy!
Losing to Navy and losing at home tonight to those Montana Bobcats.
The Grizz.
Grizz. Wrong team.
Oh yeah, and there's another ACC team which I want to go.
Well, I want to go over that, Joby, because you preseason also said that the surprise team out of the ACC could be Wake Forest.
Yeah. Well, we talked beforehand.
Surprise!
Yeah. Georgia Southern was a big surprise. That's Danny Manning. Oh, boy.
Hey, they're on my one line this week.
Yeah, but on to Pitt. This is a team that the way they look tonight, they might not win a game in a long time. I don't know. I don't have their schedule up, Titel, but Lordy, this is a bad team. And remember, Boston College is in this conference. There is a real shot Pitt does not win an ACC game this year. I mean, there is a real shot. This team is poorly coached because the talent doesn't fit. Stallings ran off all the talent, and now he's stuck with nothing except the exposure that he's not a very good coach. So
yes.
I couldn't have been a nicer guy, would say a lot of Vanderbilt fans.
Right. I have pinpointed what I believe Pitt's problem to be. They are in a city with two other Division I teams. Those teams are Duquesne and Robert Morris, and they are the third best team in that city this year. That's the problem.
Okay, let's look at a couple of things.
Am I wrong?
No, you're dead right, I think.
We were all silent. We couldn't believe it.
Well, Robert Morris is not actually technically in the city. I think they're about half an hour north.
Township.
Oh, my mistake. I guess that shoots my analysis to hell.
Yep, Matt, very quickly, the American, we saw a pair of upsets so far. Tulsa losing to Lamar, and tonight South Florida getting pasted by Morgan State.
Is that even an upset?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because even though you think, these are bottom tier teams, those are the type of losses that hurt basically everyone outside of Wichita and Cincy who are going to do their damage. But yeah, for your Temples, your UConns, your UCFs who have tournament hopes, this drags down the league. It could be a hindrance because if South Florida and Tulsa are this bad, that's just going to hurt the overall power of otherwise I think a decent league at the top. But
yeah, that's the good point about that is you're hurting because now you got such an awful team, and a team like Cincinnati has to play them twice. A team like Wichita has to play them twice, possibly. Yes. I don't know the exact.
Yeah, and I think even more the UCFs, the Temples, the UConns who hopefully compete for a tournament bid, but if they have that jagged out, or even, God forbid, one of them has a bad night, like, say, UConn, which is capable of basically doing anything at any night, they lose to a Tulsa, and that could be like a 200-plus loss.
Talking just real quickly about one other conference here before we move on to the upcoming schedule. Tytel, let me bring you in on this. The Atlantic 10.
Yes, I'm glad we did.
Heading into the season, let me start with – there are three teams that we talked about maybe even being on the bubble here that have had awful starts to the year. Start with St. Bonaventure, because you and I disagreed about this. They lost at home to Niagara, and they were without Jalen Adams. But does that excuse losing at home to Niagara?
You obviously think not, and I'm happy to have anybody else chime in because I'm interested to see. For me, it's almost a no-brainer that if you're missing the preseason conference player of the year, then I understand you shouldn't lose to Niagara, but I don't think they're going to be penalized as much as you think, frankly.
David, do you think they'll be penalized if they have a decent season, but they did lose at home to Niagara?
Well, I don't think it's so much that St. Bonaventure won't be penalized as it is that Niagara, if by chance they are in the picture, which they won't be rewarded because, as I understand it, largely when the committee says they factor in injuries and suspensions, they factor it in as a variable for your opponents, not so much yourself. You don't really get a free pass for not having a key player. It's just that if you beat a team who doesn't have a key player, you don't get the same amount of credit.
Actually, it's normally the opposite.
I don't I've been told otherwise.
Yeah, I'm with Matt on this. This is the Kenyon Martin rule. Yeah. Going forward.
Yeah, they were. Well, yeah, because they didn't have him going into the tournament.
Right. Yeah, they make up for what your team is based on, and they did with Oregon last year a little bit too.
Well, I'll say last year in the Big East when you had Xavier's, Meredith things, and Mo Watson went down for Creighton. I don't think teams like Marquette or Providence were really dinged, even though those wins might not look quite as good. They still basically got the credit you'd have initially gotten.
Yeah. I mean, they were right on the bubble.
I honestly, though, think, and Jerry Palm said this, and I concur, I think fans like to overrate that component. I don't think it has as big a component as you think, as all of us think we get caught up on, and fans themselves, we were missing the first guy off the bench. The NCAA will give us a credit on it. No, sorry, that doesn't happen. It's got to be something very significant, and we're talking. And John might be right with Conference Player of the Year types, but it's Niagara. I mean, come on, it's Niagara. They didn't play a MAC team. They played Niagara.
They lost by 2. Missing their best player.
I mean, come on.
I don't know. I've seen them ding with. I mean, I've seen them ding Monmouth, and a few years ago when Belmont went on a road trip without 2 starters and lost both games. That was the year they beat North Carolina at North Carolina, and I think they had another notable win too. And for them to not get taken, and the explanation was, well, we're not just going to overlook the fact that they lost those games because they didn't have their 2 best players.
It's also called politics, I think, a little.
Yeah.
I mean, when you hear somebody tell you that that's how they evaluate it, you kind of tend to believe him.
Well, let's move on to two other teams I want to briefly mention from the A10. Salika, let me bring you in here on these. St. Joe's, as we record this, looks like they're on the verge of going 0-2 on the season.
Good call, Chad.
Including a loss to a Toledo team that might have been the worst team in the Mid-American heading into the season. And Richmond losing to Delaware, and then blown out today by Jacksonville State, now 0-2 as well.
Good call, Chad. I knew you were big on this Richmond team.
Yeah, now we're starting to wonder why Georgetown decided to play at Richmond as opposed to playing at the PK Invitational later on this month.
This is just a bad start for the teams that we thought maybe in bubble contention in the Atlantic 10, and that's going to carry over to the season. It could make this A10 a 2-bid league, possibly.
Yeah. But getting back to the so-called worst team in the MAC, I thought it was going to be up the road from where I am, but lo and behold, they actually won at Fordham with 3 seconds to play on Friday night.
There you go, and another A10 loss.
well, speaking of the A10 versus the MAC, it's not like the top of the conference was blowing people out, versus the MAC with that awful performance Dayton tried to put up against Ball State.
We didn't expect much from Dayton, but it's just, to Chad's point, it's the teams that we expected something from. I know the Bonnies were without a key player, and I know it's one game. I mean, if everybody enters conference play with 8, 9, 10 wins that we were expecting to be in the discussion, then this will kind of fade into the background. But it is kind of alarming when you see team after team after team that you were expecting something from not do anything. And God, speaking of not doing anything, Richmond, holy crap, playing in the afternoon today because of field trip day. They brought all the kids to school. All of them went home horrified after watching that.
They were booed out of their own building today.
Yeah, they were booed by a bunch of middle schoolers. Nicely done, Richmond.
Hey, some of us had Davidson second, and they put up 100+ in their first game.
Yeah,
right.
Davidson.
Let's keep things moving here. I want to move on to the upcoming games, and what we're going to do is pull up on the screen right now. Hopefully, if this works, it might not. Who knows? We'll figure this out as we go along here. But there should be the schedule for the Gavitt tip-off games on the screen if we did this correctly. There they are. Yes. We know that Minnesota already beat Providence, but we've got coming up Tuesday night Purdue Marquette. 3 games Wednesday, 2 Thursday, and 1 more on Friday. Matt, your team Marquette's up next. So what are your thoughts on tomorrow and the rest of the challenge here as it goes forward?
I think you can about copy-paste today's score, unfortunately, with the road team beating the home team by about 10 or 12. It's just – I think Marquette – it would have been interesting if Harry Froling had been eligible because he could have maybe pulled Haas away from the basket. But without him, I think Haas is just going to go to work. In that their guards are a little bigger than ours, similar type. It's just, I think, not a great match for Marquette early on. I'm expecting about a 10 or 12 point Purdue win.
Well, and Tytel, with this win here today by Minnesota, one of the Big East's best chance for a game, is this going to be a Big Ten blowout in this series at this point?
I mean, if Indiana's involved, I would say no. I think it's up for grabs. I don't know how Tim Miles has prepared his team, but if you're wondering where I'm going to be,
they're on the Final Four pace.
I'm going to be at a little place called College Park, Maryland.
Yeah, I'm looking at them though. Other than that Indiana Seton Hall game and maybe the Nebraska St. John's game, it's tough to see very many Big East wins here, Joby.
Xavier should beat Wisconsin.
I think X is going to go there to win. Yeah,
I think that's a rough matchup for Xavier.
Xavier, I think, is a protected seed challenger, and Wisconsin's not that. And so I'm not going to – in Illinois, DePaul's bad, but Illinois is dreadful too. So who knows?
and
I'm not willing to throw in the towel for the Big East, but yes, the Big Ten is deeper this year, without a doubt. Yeah, I mean, what is Indiana doing playing Seton Hall, though?
Yeah, I think that game alone
that screws up the whole thing, to be honest.
Right, that game alone disqualifies this from being called a challenge.
Yeah, Seton Hall could beat pretty much any of the teams. I mean, Purdue, Seton Hall, wouldn't you love that game? That would be a great game, Purdue, Seton Hall.
I kind of enjoy Indiana Marquette, too.
I mean, they're playing Indiana? I mean, jeez.
Have you also noticed that there's a certain flag bearer that's missing from the Big East this year?
Well, I guess so is Michigan State, though, from the Big Ten.
That team that three of us, I think, picked to win the national title.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm just so happy that they didn't match up Nova and Michigan State. What a horrible game that would have been.
Well, actually, sorry, Kajobi, go ahead. Finish.
Was it because segue, Chad, to the best game of the week?
Yes, it was exactly. I scroll down here and pull other games outside of tournaments, and there it is, starting at the top, the Champions Classic. Number 1 and number 2 meeting tomorrow night here at 7:00. Duke, Michigan State, and then preseason number 4 and number 5, Kentucky, Kansas to follow that. Tytel, have you ever seen this good of a doubleheader on the first week of a season?
I mean, we're missing the number 3 team in the country, of course, but besides that, it's a pretty good lineup. Fun fact, which player in one of those games is leading the NCAA, the entire nation, in field goals made?
We are 3 days into the season. Who won in the biggest blowout? I don't know.
Marvin Bagley is leading.
23
made. He is the real deal. I don't know if Porter's ever going to be healthy or good, but if I'm an NBA GM, I'm taking Marvin Bagley number 1 and not even thinking twice about it.
Interesting.
Matt, do you have picks for these two games?
Yeah, I would go Michigan State, and this sounds weird because I like how they play. I think Kentucky I'm going to take because I think it's a bad matchup for Kansas.
I think Kentucky's too young here still. I think if this game was played in March, I would agree with you. But this game being played now and how Kentucky struggled so against Utah Valley and Vermont, I'm going with Kansas in this one.
How about Duke blasting Elon, an Elon team that we thought was – we didn't expect them to beat Duke, but are you surprised Duke had such an easy time with what is a fringe top 50, probably NIT caliber team? I mean, Duke just blew them out.
Yeah. Well, and Duke, to their credit, that same Utah Valley team that gave Kentucky fits of all sorts,
yes.
Duke just rolled. And I thought, well, Kentucky, Duke, they're somewhat similar. Duke has Grayson Allen, so there's some stability there. No, Duke's right now much better than Kentucky. And, transitive property alone shows that.
Well, Tytel, let me turn to you. Take a look at some of these other notable games for the week. These, again, the games that are not part of the in-season tournaments. These are regular season games. We see Missouri with an interesting early road test at Utah. Not a great Utah team, but, this is a good road test to find out a little bit about this Missouri team.
It is. Again, I think Porter could be the whole difference. Right now, I think they're destroying Wagner on ESPN2. Missouri is. Utah, I think, solid Pac-12 team. I don't think they're a top tier. It's never easy to play out in Utah, but and especially because Missouri is so young, it'll be tough. But if Porter's healthy, I like Missouri. If not, I think it's a toss-up.
All right. And Joby was saying Friday night, your who's there going on the road like they like to do every year. Good road test at VCU, although VCU is a bit down this season.
Yeah, they're down, but they are 2-0. They got, it's not like North Florida's a world beater. North Florida's a good team, and VCU won it, and that's. They
had to sweat. Oh man, they did win though.
Yeah, they won, but North Florida could win. North Florida you could see in March. If they run their. If they do well in their tournament, which they easily could. So it's a good game. Virginia should take care of business. But it's the sort of game that I'm glad Tony Bennett schedules. It makes Virginia tougher. A loss will not disqualify you from the NCAA tournament. A win looks pretty solid. I don't know why more teams do not do games like that. The NCAA tournament committee is smarter than I think a lot of coaches give them credit for on recognizing what are good wins and not bad losses.
Well, they're not as smart as me, but I agree that they're smarter than the coaches.
Matt, you were very high in this Vanderbilt team. They just lost this evening on the road at Belmont, crosstown rival. They got a real interesting game coming up Sunday night hosting USC, though.
Yeah, this could be the prime time to catch him, I think, because I think D'Anthony Melton was their most complete player. And I don't think he'll be playing again if he plays at all. I think there's a chance, for Vandy to kind of atone for what's, I don't think, all that bad of a loss. Belmont's a very good program, but now to get back into it, this is kind of a win that they probably need to kind of offset it and get back right in the tournament hunt.
Yeah, about that, to echo what Joby just said, the NCAA selection committee, not as smart as me, is smarter than most coaches. Belmont lost one game at home last year. It was to Middle Tennessee, who, as we all know, was very strong last year, finished in the round of 32. And I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't lose a single game at home this year. It's a tough place to play. And I know that they're not playing Power 5 caliber teams, but they're good enough to beat Power 5 caliber teams at home, as they did tonight. It's not easy to win at Belmont. That is all.
Titel, one last game I want to quickly mention here at the very bottom. This is coming up next Monday. We'll actually probably do another Hoops HD report before then, but I just wanted to include that. North Carolina at Stanford, another fascinating game for the Tar Heels on the road against a pretty good Stanford team.
It is. I think Stanford's going to have the edge inside with Michael Humphrey out of Phoenix, Arizona, and Reed Travis, former McDonald's All-American. Obviously, Luke May was great in the first game, but it's a very young lineup, especially if Joel Berry's still hurt, which I think he is. Hopefully he doesn't have any more video game losses. But I would not at all I think Carolina's going to win, but it's also a super late game, 11:30 Eastern, flying across the country. So I don't think it's going to be like double digits. I think it's going to be very close.
Well, the last – sorry, David, go ahead.
Well, I just had a question. One of the things that Roy Williams does that I like is he plays his former assistants and he plays them on equal terms. The name Jared Haas, former player for Roy Williams, former associate coach for Roy Williams. North Carolina doing the home and home, going out there, and they've been to places like they went to UAB when Jared Haas was at UAB. I know that it wasn't a former coach, but they've been to Tulane. Don't be surprised if they get a home and home going with UNC Wilmington in the very near future. I just like that he's willing to do that. A lot of programs do not.
Well, let's turn to the final section we want to hit today, and that is the other thing that starts this week is 6 of the in-season tournaments begin. I'm going to pull up. This comes right from our website, right from the hoopshd.com. You go to the in-season tournaments tab, you will see what you're looking at right now on the screen. But the first of the tournaments is the Puerto Rico tip-off, relocated to Myrtle Beach due to the hurricane devastation down there in Puerto Rico. Salika, let me start with you on this event here. Is there a clear favorite in this event? And looking at who's in the bottom quarterfinal, I don't know why I went with you, but I did.
I don't know why you'd be looking at me to say Iowa State, given how they've started the past couple days, but.
But do you have a team here? This is a kind of a weaker.
You have a rooting interest, John.
I have a rooting interest at the top here, but again, hot. Is also going to be.
I was referring to Iowa State's opponent.
I think we need to mute the puppet.
Well, do you have a pick to win this event?
It pains me to say this, but I'm probably going to take a surprise team and say Tim Floyd's UTEP team.
My God, hasn't Puerto Rico suffered enough?
Hey, they don't have to watch this group of teams. That might be their one silver lining.
Yeah.
I kind of like Western Michigan here because I do like them out of the MAC, and it's such a weak field across the board here that, South Carolina being down, they could be the team to surprise and steal this one.
It is a field truly worthy to be called the Tire Invitational.
Tire Fire Invitational, yes.
Tire Fire.
Joby, Charleston, the other big 8-team event starting this weekend, slightly better field, although maybe not that great either.
Well, I mean, we talked about Indiana State earlier, and Auburn's going through all the FBI mess, so they're kind of in trouble. But just as Angry Frank has a little home court in Myrtle, let's see if Clemson can change their ridiculously bad luck from last year and actually just gut their way through this thing and win it. Clemson might surprise. There'll be a crowd. Will there? No football game on Thursday. Okay, yeah.
Big crowd Thursday, Friday. There's no game Saturday. They play Sunday, so there's nothing against the football. So maybe.
Yeah. They'll fill it.
Tell the 2K Classic Thursday and Friday. Vatek, St. Louis, Providence, Washington. Potential Vatek Providence game for the championship could be real good.
Yeah, like this one.
For me?
Yeah.
Sorry. I saw the Providence-Minnesota game tonight, and even though I was really impressed by Minnesota, Providence was solid. It'll just take a little time to get going, and no shame in losing to Minnesota even at home, even by double digits. Washington is a little better than I thought, only because I thought they were going to be, terrible, and they seem average. Virginia Tech's amazing. They have some freshman, Nikhil Alexander-Waller, who's scoring 27 a game or something. So I'm going to pick Tech, but I would not at all be surprised if Providence wins it, especially if they have some good turnout from the fans traveling to New York City.
Uncle Buzz! Everybody's favorite crazy uncle.
David, there's also a 14 visitors bracket here. Seattle, Detroit, Houston Baptist, and Belmont.
Yes, I know that they didn't win the game, but I would like to swap Belmont for Washington anyway. This is almost – you almost hate to see that Belmont can't get slightly better competition out of this event. Chet, not to interrupt, but these are exempt events. Can you or me or somebody just explain to everybody real quick what that means and what it is?
Sure. What they are exempt events. What it is you get up to 4 games. They only count as 1 game against your schedule, and part of the games can be round robin. Some of the events are just 4 round robin events. We're not going to be looking at those tonight. We're only looking at the games that are actually bracketed. A lot of these cases, what you'll do is you'll maybe play 1 or 2 games against a predetermined foe, and then have the event take place. And they all got to take place, I believe, within 3 weeks of each other. All the games.
14 days.
14 days of each other, all the games. So that's why, for example, Belmont playing Washington the other night was part of this event, but that was just a predetermined matchup, not a bracketed matchup.
Yeah.
We're only going with bracketed matchups here. Sleep. New event, this Bahama Showcase. It's involving 8 typically under-the-radar programs, but actually a really good field of under-the-radar programs here. When you look at Northern Kentucky, Weber State, Iona, Vermont, Coastal Carolina.
Yeah. And we wonder why fields like the Great Alaska Shootout are going to be going bye-bye after the regular season. But I have to say, I'm probably looking forward to a potential Vermont and Northern Kentucky final right here, judging by the way this bracket is laid out.
Yeah, Matt, would you agree with that? And do you have a pick here? And what I think is kind of a slightly more interesting tournament than it looks at first glance.
Yeah, I think I like this field better than the original Puerto Rico one and the one in the Clemson's one. Yeah. No, I'd probably go Vermont. But I mean, NKU is also really good. Even Iona never totally cut out Tim Cluse, but yeah, I'd probably go Vermont slightly over NKU.
Yeah, Iona Weber State could be a real neat quarterfinal because Weber State's another team that's always good.
Yeah, they're pretty good this year.
And I think Bradley's not awful. I mean, you got to watch that. Vermont can't have a letdown from their close call and rough.
Titel, I know you're fascinated by the Paradise Jam being played in Lynchburg, Virginia, on Liberty's home court here. Is there anybody watching at this event?
It's weird. It's weird to see a Houston team playing in a tournament that was relocated due to hurricane damage. I don't even know what's going through their minds. As far as the big conference teams in this tournament, it's Colorado and Wake. At the start of the season, I would have picked Wake. Now I kind of want to pick Colorado, but I'll go with Colorado. And what is flowhoops.com, anyone?
It is a website. It's a pay-per-view website that picked up 3 or 4 of these events this year. I think they had one of them last year. It's a newer thing that's just started. But
we will be purchasing it. Don't worry. I sometimes wonder, after looking at these events that have been relocated due to hurricane damage, was there really hurricane damage to the point to where they couldn't host the tournament, or did they just look at the fields and were like, you know what, we don't want that here anymore?
Well, I'll say that Puerto Rico group probably should be playing on an open field somewhere.
Yeah.
Matt, let me stick with you here. The Hall of Fame tip-off. Texas Tech, BC, LaSalle, Northwestern. Maybe a decent Texas Tech Northwestern final here.
Yeah, that's in a weird way. I think Northwestern might almost be happy to get away from having to play at the airplane hangar there in Rosemont. So I think I'll go with Northwestern. But yeah, it would stun me if Tech won. And even that's a little bit of a tricky game for Northwestern against LaSalle.
Have you all watched Northwestern? I haven't seen them much this year, but in watching the scores, they've had to not sweat, but they've struggled to beat teams that you would expect them to roll over. And maybe they just haven't gotten their motors started yet, but I'm curious to see what everybody's favorite longest-running joke, Boston College, does in this tournament. If they're going to kind of get onto the scene, this is a chance for them to do it by beating good teams, but not teams that are so good that they're just overmatched entirely.
Joby, you also got this Springfield bracket here. South Alabama, Maine, Sacred Heart, St. Peter's.
Wow.
No?
Hey,
wow.
I'll just 3 simple letters. USA. USA. USA.
Wow.
I actually picked Sacred Heart to be among the top teams of the Northeast Conference. That's kind of where I'd lean on that if you got a.
Well, and then maybe this is Maine. I think this is going to be the only tournament Maine sees yet again. So.
Or ever.
When was the last time Maine won any sort of an elimination tournament bracketed game? Just conference tournament, preseason exempt tournament. Have they ever won anything?
They've won like 8-9 games in the America East tournament before. Back when they played the 8-9, sure.
Okay, sure.
Right. David, let me stick with you. Gulf Coast Showcase. This is another event that primarily focuses on some of the smaller schools, although actually a decent this year. Titel, we'll get to you on your pick on this one as well in a second.
Yeah, 2 teams that I really like here are Towson and Missouri State. Nobody else in this bracket really excites me that much. Northern Illinois, I like what they've.
Yeah.
Georgia Southern. There they are.
They have a pretty good win. I know.
Oh yeah, they're currently on our one line. Georgia Southern. So yeah. I don't know how much I like Georgia. I mean, impressive start to the season, but I'm not as excited by them as I am Missouri State and Towson. But if they keep winning, who knows? They're certainly off to a good start. Northern Illinois, I like what their program has done. I think that they've improved significantly, but they're still not to the point of. Is this under the radar or the Hoops HQ report?
Let me go to you real quick.
Last year when Houston was part of the field.
Yeah.
Titel, your Penn Quakers also in this event, coming off of a double overtime loss tonight in the Big 5 to LaSalle.
Yeah, I'm predicting we go 0 for 3. It's going to be a rough season in Philly. I'm looking at our schedule. Thanks to Coach Donahue, we at least get a breather next Saturday by playing Penn State Brandywine. Hopefully we can beat them because after that, Monmouth, Villanova, Dayton. I mean, the non-conference schedule is going to be brutal.
I give you a real good shot in that 7th place game against UMKC. I don't know.
UMKC.
I'll take it, but not getting my hopes up.
Let's have some real good events here. Let's start with the Maui Invitational. Matt, let me bring you in here on this event. Always one of the premier events and another real strong field, especially on the couple of weaker teams here, but pretty strong field.
Yeah, it's a solid. I think, Marquette VCU is interesting, kind of like the 4-5 game almost of it. Wichita looks real good. Like, I was not expecting to turn off that Charleston game tonight at the half because Wichita was rolling them. But, no, Wichita, I think, is a solid favorite in this. Wichita ND final would be real interesting. But, yeah, I'd definitely go with Wichita here.
Yeah, Joby, I love that idea of the Wichita Notre Dame final.
I think that's what you're looking at, especially with Michigan kind of lackluster to start, and LSU's awful. So you can forget about them. So I think it's looking like Wichita State and Notre Dame. I mean,
David, I got a big question for you here.
Yes.
A potential consolation semifinal, 8:00 p.m. Tuesday night, Chaminade LSU. Who do you have?
The Silver Swords. Nothing brings me more pleasure than saying that. And you got to kind of feel for Chaminade. This is kind of a showcase event for them. And they need to face and beat quality competition to impress the Division II committee. And LSU just simply is not it.
I would know that Chaminade is a conference rival of the Cal Baptist, our team of the people, though. So
yeah, I mean, Cal Baptist would roll LSU.
Another Flow Hoops event here, Stalika, the Cayman Islands Classic. You do have Iowa and Cincinnati in this event, but a lot of other mediocre stuff too.
Well, also keep an eye on South Dakota State and Wyoming here. That's actually a pretty good opener right there, because Wyoming is another up-and-comer in the Mountain West, and South Dakota State favored to win the Summit. So this is one you want to keep an eye on, but I can't see anyone knocking off the Bearcats in this field.
Yeah, they think they get a few tests here. Buffalo, not that bad. UAB, not that bad of a team. I think they'll get some tests, but I agree with you. I think they win this event.
Oh, yeah. Richmond is that bad.
David, here you go. It's four teams that play extra games that get a little bracket event of their own as part of the Cayman Islands Classic. Jacksonville State, Savannah State, Alabama State, and Chattanooga.
Yes, and we saw Jacksonville State play at we touched on this earlier in one of the campus events, one of the non-bracketed games. And they just blew Richmond, the Kingdom Come. I would like to see Richmond and Jacksonville State switched.
Yes. I think Jacksonville State could give battles here if they were in the main event. Titel Legends Classic, a four-team event for the main bracket between A&M, Oklahoma State, Penn State, and Pitt. Is this going to be a laugher for one of these four teams?
It's not. If Pitt wins, I'll laugh till the end of the week. That's not happening. I think Penn State will roll them. I think Oklahoma State has enough off-the-court stuff that A&M should come through, especially because I was ready to give up on – I was so high on A&M the preseason. In the first 10 minutes of the West Virginia game, they looked terrible, and I was just not getting it. I didn't realize Robert Williams was such a huge loss, but they really bounced back. I'm going with A&M, but I think Penn State is like on the cusp, so I wouldn't be shocked, but I'll go with A&M.
Joby, you agree with him? You think Penn State may have a shot of pulling off the upset there?
No, we dealt with this before. I'm just not – until Penn State proves that they're not Penn State, for lack of a better word, A&M's real. A&M's going to compete. Yeah, yes, I know the Williams situation, but A&M is –
he'll be back by then too.
Yeah, Willie, I didn't know.
I think it's just a 2-game for him.
Yeah, so A&M is the team that if anyone takes it from Kentucky in the SEC that I said would be there. A&M is a protected levels team seed. They should show it right here.
Well, that Montana-Pittsburgh upset tonight was one of those games also that David mentioned. So Montana should be really the team in the main event there. But Joby, you think they could take that consolation bracket at least?
I think the Gauchos are actually decent this year.
Well, the games
they are.
Played at
I mean they've won a couple. So I'd go with UCSB just from but who knows just because Pitt stinks. I mean, and Montana only won in overtime. So that's a mark against Montana, not a
it is
not a glory for Pitt.
David, MGM Resorts main event, the main bracket, Rice, Vegas, Utah, Ole Miss. You excited?
Oh, I can hardly. I actually like. I mean, this Utah versus Ole Miss game is actually a pretty decent out-of-conference game from two teams that we think might be good but aren't subscribed to yet. But maybe we will.
Why isn't that split up? Like, should it, one of them be playing UNLV and the other one?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Let's UNLV because they're hosting.
Let's call them.
Give
Chad,
themselves the 1 seed. So
get them on the phone.
Yeah, well, Matt, Vegas might look pretty good in there. They haven't played anybody yet, but
I'd probably go. I'd go Ole Miss here, even though them and Utah, that's really a coin flip game. But I'll give you Ole Miss a coin flip, and I think there's a little bit better still than UNLV.
Yeah, and look at the middleweight. Oh, look at that.
Lika, you wanted to address this event at that middleweight bracket where you're going Prairie View A&M, correct?
We need to call this by its original name. That is the Men Who Speak Up main event.
The Men Who Speak Up sponsor some other event now, so it's no longer that, I don't believe. But let's move on to the TA Hall of Fame Classic at Titel.
Been silenced.
This is a little bit better of a field here with UCLA, Creighton, Baylor, and Wisconsin.
You think so, Doctor? Yes, you are correct. The matchup that I'm looking for is Baylor, Wisconsin. Baylor, you got Joe Luala-Chul, Wisconsin, Ethan Happ, two guys who could be some of the best players in their respective conferences. Who knows what the heck's going to happen with UCLA with all their stuff in China. I would love to see Wisconsin get it done. They're young and they lost so much talent from last year. But I'll pick the Badgers to go all the way.
Wow.
Matt, the Camp Challenge, I'm not asking what we want to say about this event, either one of the brackets. Maybe the Mayan division is going to be more fun than the Riviera division. I don't know.
No, I mean, Fresno isn't half bad in that, but yeah.
They're not half good.
I'm probably more interested in watching Montana State, the team I like in the Big Sky this year, than anybody else in this event. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, what a great event.
Yeah.
I mean,
hey, at least you got a trip to get good out of it. You got to make sure you're in shape to make it out of the court. Now, afterwards, you can find the happy hour, but
if you're going to Cancun for this event, do not go to this event. Just go to Cancun.
Yeah. Conveniently get lost on the way to the arena.
Right, yeah.
One of the premier events of the year, the Battle for Atlantis, Purdue, Tennessee, Villanova, Arizona's in there, SMU's in there. Yeah. Real nice event. Joby.
Strong take, Joby. Yes.
Nova's going to win this. But in my opinion, just because I'm so on Nova, Arizona, I think, still trying to get their feet wet. Sorry, the Titel from all the, from what's all the smoke that's swirling there. I like Purdue, and I'll go with SMU on that. But Nova, I like Nova ultimately coming out of this thing.
Well, I don't know, Titel. I think Arizona has the easier side of the bracket, if you want to say things. The Nova-Purdue semifinal could be two teams beating each other up. And if Arizona gets them in the final, doesn't that give them a shot there?
I agree with you in terms of the strength of schedule-wise. As far as a possible Arizona-Villanova matchup, could be a Final Four preview. God willing, Sean Miller actually makes it one day. If you enjoy young big men, that is the game for you. DeAndre Ayton from Arizona and Omari Spellman from Villanova, two of the best young big men in the country going at it. It will be fantastic if they make it.
Yeah. And the other thing about this event, you need to locate Access TV on your television package.
No longer Access TV. No longer has it's going to be ESPN 3. Well, read the screen on you. It doesn't say Access, does it?
Well, no, but I wasn't paying attention to that.
David, just for that, you have to tell us who's going to win the mainland bracket here between UFC.
The Battle of Atlantis on the mainland. Yes. I think one of these teams is quite a bit better than all the rest of them, and that's UMBC. I don't. That's just. I hope that they're getting at least a couple of decent bye games out of that.
Will Chicago State have a university to fly back to at BWI?
I don't know. That's a very good question. I hope they're getting paid to be in there. So
I'm going to give you the honors of the very ever Great Alaska Shootout, telling us who is going to win it. This is the final year of the event. It has been canceled after this year. Central Michigan in there, who gave a good game to Michigan tonight, and College of Charleston, who got their asses kicked by Wichita State tonight, among others.
Well, that was Wichita State, but I could easily see College of Charleston coming out of the top half of this bracket, but towards the bottom half of the bracket. watch out for Idaho and Cal State Bakersfield in the semifinal. But at the end of the day, I'm going to take Charleston to actually win this field.
We're going to be saying goodbye to this event, David.
Yeah, and I don't understand why. Alaska Anchorage has put it on, and I know that it isn't nearly as prestigious as some of these other events, and it's kind of gotten lost in the shuffle as Old Spice Classic, the Battle for Atlantis, Maui, of course, although that one's been around. But there was a time where they really did put on a show. It was a good holiday tournament. They always had solid NCAA competition in there. In fact, I think it was as recently as 2004 or 5, the year Washington ended up with a 1 seed. They went up there and won this event, and every team that they played in this tournament was in the NCAA tournament. I kind of hate to see it go away. Even if it were going to be on a lower level, I wish Alaska Anchorage would keep it going. Sure, I don't know why they decided to cancel it. I really don't. It's not like they're traveling anywhere, spending a whole lot of money. Why not keep it going?
Well, they do go to Flips this year. Maybe that's part of it. Title, you're a big Flo Hoops fans. Let me annually, one of the better fields, a little bit down this year, and we'll get to why some of these fields are a bit down in a bit. But the Advocare Invitational, your thoughts on this event?
I mean, assuming West Virginia can get their act together, I like them a lot. I also think that a lot of people on this podcast gave Oregon State a very hard time last year, which they rightfully did because they sucked last year.
Yes.
But now that they're healthy and they went out and beat a horrible Southern Utah team by 17 last week, we'll see how they do against Wyoming tonight. I really think Oregon State is going to surprise people. I'm not putting them in the tourney, and I'm not saying they're going to even have a 500 record, but I really think they have a lot of good offense and a nice youth nucleus. So I think you keep your eye on the Beavers.
And David, Nebraska Long Beach State, who wins the 7th place game?
Nebraska's winning this event. They are currently on a Final Four pace. Tim Miles and I have been conversing over Twitter, and he is going to destroy the non-believers.
Let's get those X's off the screen here and scroll on down. Ken, Hudden Legacy. We've got some X's on the screen. Let's get rid of those. There we go. Matt, the Wooden Legacy, St. Mary's only chance this season to do anything of note, and there's not many chances in there even.
No, that like Harvard, even that they struggled their opener out. And I don't think we're quite as high. I'm not quite as high on them as you guys were. In fact, I might like Yale or Princeton as much in the Ivy. But no, this is St. Mary's still not a bad game. St. Joe's doesn't look so hot, and then no more Lamar Kimball for a while. And then the other half against Georgia, like one of them might be okay, but this is. I mean, I'm kind of high on San Diego State, but in fact, I actually might pick San Diego State to win it over St. Mary's.
Well, if that happens, David, St. Mary's may have trouble making the field if they slip up a few more times than that.
Yeah, I mean, I do really like this Harvard team. I know that they struggled against who was it that they played in their second? Oh, UMass. It was really kind of surprising, a thrilling game to watch. But all in all, I think they're going to get it kick-started. But I think, like, when you look at Harvard, when you look at St. Mary's, and really when you look at San Diego State, these are schools that have limited chances. Some of that just by their situation, and some of it by how they decided to schedule out a conference. And when you have 3 schools all in the same event that have limited chances to prove themselves, it suddenly becomes of heightened importance for those 3 schools.
Right.
I got to say, this will be a banner day for ESPN News on Thanksgiving for the first time.
Well, we'll also get into the middle here why some of the games are in ESPN News because of a special event we have this year. But one more event before we get to that, Joby, the NIT season tip-off with your Virginia Cavaliers.
Yeah, and while Virginia may or may not be the favorite, given what you feel about Seton Hall and Rhodey, this is actually for a 4-team group. This is actually going to give good wins. Whoever comes out of this 2-0 is going to be, I think, very well positioned going forward for the rest of the year. This is the sort of tournament or 2-game stretch you want to play, and it'll be very interesting to see how the back-to-back days go, and it's good prep for March. Whether you're conference or eventually the NCAAs.
Yeah, and I need to give a quick shout out to last year's team of the people who won this event.
Last year, yes.
Yes.
Reason why some of these other events are down and why we've got games on ESPN News is the 16-team invitational, 2 set brackets of just incredible brackets. And Titel, let me start with the victory bracket. The half of the bracket with North Carolina, Arkansas, UConn, Michigan State. This half alone is pretty darn impressive.
It is. I actually want to talk about the motion bracket, so I'll just keep it brief. I think North Carolina and Michigan State are going to be the class of this bracket, and they should be a fantastic game if they end up meeting in the championship.
Yeah, and Joby, you agree with that?
Watch Arkansas. You know that I was high on them. Watch Arkansas.
They got the toughest road though with Oklahoma to
beat North Carolina, especially given when are they coming back from that? They have the weird Stanford game at 11:30. Then it's 2:30. I mean, who knows how North Carolina players' body clocks are.
Yeah, the Stanford game will be Monday night, so and that's why they're doing that game out there in Stanford Monday night.
And they'll go to class at North Carolina, so it doesn't really matter about that. They're not going to be distracted by that.
Right. So they're doing that to get a couple days out there before they start this event.
But watch Arkansas here, and then after I say that, look at the Sooners beat them in game 1. But,
right.
I'd go with Michigan State to win the whole thing.
I'd watch out for UConn in that Oregon game. I think UConn could win a game in this event too.
They'll get a good chance in the consolation half probably.
Tatiana, let me go back to you with the motion bracket here, and recognize that at least one of these teams is going to have 2 losses after this event is over. I don't know who that team is going to be.
It's amazing. I need to focus on Stanford because this could be the greatest week-long schedule in the history of the sport. So Monday, the 20th, they have North Carolina flying 3,000 miles to play them. Then they both head up the coast to Portland. Stanford could play Florida, Gonzaga, and Duke back to back to back. Like, who's ever had a week like that? That's ridiculous.
Oh my God, that is.
If they win all 4 of those, it's really going to help their tournament resume.
If they have all 4 of those,
they're number 1 in the nation. If they
they will. I was going to go there also. David, do you have a pick to win this insanely difficult bracket? I mean, you're going to see a team like Florida or Butler or Gonzaga or Duke or Stanford come out with losses at the end of this event, or Texas.
Yeah, I think Duke, the first game is certainly winnable, and the second one, I don't think Butler or Texas, while really good, are quite up to Duke's level. So that they're the favorite just because I think they're going to be the least challenged all the way through, at least through the first 2 games.
You could be looking at a 5th-place game here of like a Texas versus Gonzaga or something like that. I mean, that's on this field.
And you know how much – and the reason that's a 5th-place game, it doesn't matter. The committee doesn't care if it's 3rd, 5th, place, or 7th. It's to them it's just a neutral floor game.
However, this is when we're going to see if those Duke freshmen, the back-to-back nature of these games could – I'd watch who Duke plays in that second round. That could be an upset. Don't be shocked if it happens.
I'm going with Florida in this. I think this is their breakout to show, hey, last year it was no fluke. They're again a top 10 quality team.
All right. Well, Matt, let me stick with you a little bit invitational here. Just go sleek on this one. It's a Xavier team.
Yeah.
Xavier, Kansas State, Arizona State, GW. Sleek, any chance that you guys don't roll through these 2 games?
That's a dangerous question to ask, considering the field that Xavier played in last year in the Tire Pros Invitational. That one they did end up winning, but not without sweating bullets against teams like Missouri, Clemson, and Northern Iowa. George Washington, a little bit better in terms of their opener, but also watch out for a possible Xavier-Arizona State championship game because the Sun Devils could be much improved this year.
I kind of think that the Arizona State-Kansas State game may be a good one. I don't think it's 2 very good teams, but I think the game itself could be a good one. But I think Xavier's going to roll. And just looking at that visitors bracket, Sleek, let me stick with you. You got a pick for me real quick?
Real quick, I would probably say Irvine out of that group.
Sure. Matt, let me go for you here for the Emerald Coast Classic now, and that's St. Bonaventure team we were just discussing earlier.
Yeah, this is a huge opportunity. They probably got to take advantage of that, assuming if Jalen Adams is healthy. But I'm going with Jamie Dixon's crew. I really like this TCU group. They've returned basically everyone. They brought some nice freshmen in. They had a real good Australian kid sitting out as a redshirt who's now eligible this year. So I'm going with TCU in this.
And David, do you have a pick for me for the visitors bracket down there?
So let's see. No. None of them interest me at all.
Well, one of them is the second best team in the state of Nebraska.
Oh, shut it. Well, I think it's very insulting to Creighton.
I go Eastern kind of like them a little bit. Another event that in the Barclays Center Classic, the host side of the bracket is predetermined matchup, so you only have these visitors game. David, you want to give me a pick in this one?
Not Alabama A&M. They are a Centenary Award candidate. Western Texas Arlington. And Niagara on our one line with their big win against St. Bonaventure. But I think all in all, Texas Arlington's the strongest team out of this group.
I tell a neat event here in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Holy Cross, Manhattan, LaSalle, and Towson heading out there.
Yeah, I still don't understand why this thing is happening. If I have to pick a pick, I'll pick LaSalle. But it's a nice idea. I have no idea. Like, the people in Northern Ireland know what basketball is. I honestly don't know.
These are the four teams they picked head out there. You think they could have done a little better than that? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's proof positive that they really don't have much of an idea.
I like Notre Dame not in this event.
Yeah, I like Towson out of here. So,
Salika, how about Bulldog Bash? Hosted by Citadel, UMBC, Army, Marist. Not an exempt event. That's why you do see UMBC for the second time tonight. This will count as 2 games for these teams.
Yep, as opposed to teams like Army, Marist, and Citadel who aren't going to be part of any conventional exempt events. But got to think UMBC comes out of this group again.
Yeah, and Joe with the New Orleans Classic, another great event here with 4 powerhouse teams.
Hey, you got Fort Wayne, who is coming off a great upset in 2016.
Yeah.
And Liberty will have just hosted their own tournament, so now they go on the road for a tournament. All right, great.
Yeah.
Keep scrolling.
Keep scrolling here real quick, Matt. You got the
scrolling.
UTAP hosted the Sun Bowl Invitational, and you got, as we keep scrolling, Las Vegas Classic only visitors brackets games again. Radford, Lamar.
Hey, Lamar up on our Lamar a protected seat in our bracket right now.
There we go.
Matt, the last event we're going to discuss, the Diamond Head Classic, and I think this is the best field the Diamond Head has had yet this year. It's had some weaker fields in the past, but you got some real interesting teams at this event.
No, yeah, that is a nice little field of like the only dog. Well, I guess you guys kind of like Hawaii, but I don't know still if they're really a little bit from the setbacks of a couple of years ago. But as much as I'd like to go on the limb and say Davidson, I'll go with Miami.
Well, Tytel, looking at this field, you got USC in there. You got Middle Tennessee. You've got Davidson. You got Miami. I mean, is this just USC or can they be knocked off here?
Oh, I think Miami's for real. And if you haven't seen Davidson yet, they have a sophomore, John Axel Gudmundsson. He almost had a triple-double in the season opener, albeit against Charleston Southern, who they beat by almost 50 points. But they also bring back Peyton Aldridge. It's USC's to win, but Miami should be a strong threat, and I would not at all be shocked, especially, I mean, the travel will probably ruin it for them. I don't even know, how many frequent flyer miles you get from Miami to Honolulu.
That's going to be a rough road trip, and having to start with the host team, too, who is better than they've been this year. So I would also not be surprised to see a Hawaii upset in the first game.
I'm pretty sure Princeton's going to get more in terms of mileage than Miami.
Yeah, but they're not playing at 1:30 in the morning.
Let's go to pull this down here. And let me run through each of you for any other final thoughts for the evening about what we've seen so far and anything else that's coming up. And Tytel, you're on my screen right now, so let me start with you.
So I just need to talk about the Appalachian State debacle the other night. For those of you who didn't see it, they played legendary Cocoa Falls and beat them 135-34. The Mountaineers made 23 pointers and took 39 of them. You know that they were up big when they were taking the ones at the end. They out-rebounded them 76-24. I really lose respect for teams who are winning by 100 points. I don't see what it accomplishes. I think it's bad for the sport. And, if Appalachian State makes a tourney and this was their way to get the team energized, so be it. But I just think it is a poor performance all the way around.
I like that take.
I
schedule a game? And why would you schedule a game like that? Honestly, I don't like that either.
I agree. You want to schedule that game, make that one of your exhibition games. Don't play that as a regular season game. Joby, let me go to you with any other thoughts.
Yeah, no, I didn't have it pulled up before, but I have it pulled up now. Pitt versus UCSB. Who do you go with? I think UCSB. Pitt versus Penn State. Penn State. Pitt versus Lehigh. Yeah, Lehigh. Pitt versus High Point. I'll go with High Point. No, I'll go Pitt. Pitt versus Duquesne. Duquesne. Then Mount St. Mary's, West Virginia, McNeese State, Delaware State, Towson. I see Pitt with 4 or 5 wins total out of conference, and then they played BC once. Wow. Yeah, we're looking realistically at 6-7 wins for Pitt this year. That's it.
Well,
I think that's serious when I say that.
Oregon State won 5 games last year. They could be worse than that potentially.
Yeah. And yeah. just look at the schedule. Fun.
Stalika, let me head over to you.
We touched on it earlier. Mick Cronin and Cincinnati are going to be part of the initial Cayman Islands Classic. I believe we do have a preview of the wardrobes coming up, as well as a cameo from Bob Huggins for some reason.
Who's the guy behind him?
I think that might have been Keith Legree, one of their former players during the mid-'90s. I could be mistaken, but it was also a time when Mick Cronin actually had some hair.
Wow, look at Mick Cronin there. All right, Matt, any thoughts?
I would say, actually, watch the opener in China, the UCLA-Georgia Tech game, and man, when UCLA looked like the Showtime Lakers last year with Lonzo, now they look like your average Steve Alford team, and that's actually not a whole lot of fun to watch. And I think in a tough market where entertainment plays a little factor, I think Steve Alford might be wise to be looking beyond next year for a new position before the cavalry chases him.
That's an interesting
statement right there.
thought there. That's pretty bold, actually, considering what's he's done the last couple of years. But we'll see. David, let me finish this off here.
I have 2 things. I'll be quick. For years and years and years, you've heard me complain, and rightfully so, about how instead of starting off with a bang, college basketball starts off with a little toy pop gun. Last year, I felt that was much less the case. We had good games right out of the stretch. The arenas were full. And although that there's still a huge abundance of bye games, and that's what still it seems like about 75% of them do, here we are on day 5, and we have 2 matchups between 2 top 10 teams, 1 between the top 2 ranked teams. I love these showcase games early in the year, very early in the year. I think it's great for the sport. I think it generates interest that was otherwise lacking before. And I guess, is it my imagination, but when you looked around the country, watch games on television or went to games, the arenas are full in November now. It doesn't seem like that was the case before, but it seems more so now. People are really excited for the beginning of the season, and they should be. That's my first take. My second take is what happened with UCLA. It's very unfortunate. It was very stupid. I kind of hate that they're still over there, but there was one glorious thing that came out of this, and it was the most epic apology in human history when Bill Walton, at the start of the broadcast, and I still laugh at this, apologized on behalf of humanity, or on behalf of the human race, for what the UCLA players did. It was awesome. Bill Walton wears a T-shirt to work. He oftentimes does not know what's going on. He's oftentimes not talking about what's going on, and he doesn't know things like who Kevin Keats is, as John Titel pointed out in an email, and he sometimes feels compelled to apologize on behalf of the human race. We need him on Hoops HD.
We'll have to work on that, but I got two real quick notes here. First of all, I want to apologize to St. Joe's fans. I said that they were 0-2 based on the fact they were losing to UIC. They came back, tied that game, forced overtime, and did win at UIC tonight. So a little bit of hope there for St. Joe's. And second, David, right now is when we're supposed to be starting the 24-hour tip-off marathon, and it's not there. But I believe that you're going to be going on YouTube as soon as we finish this and be streaming yourself watching basketball for the next 24 hours. So anybody that wants David Griggs can go to the YouTube page.
This is going to destroy the ratings. I mean, it will. I mean, it's a good thing they weren't doing the tip-off because everybody would have just been watching us.
But on that note, on behalf of Joby Fortson, Matt Sikowski, David Griggs, John Titel, John Slika, I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again real soon.